Recently, I had an experience with credit card fraud that caused so much unnecessary stress and anxiety. I spent hours on the phone and in chats with my credit card company. I had to get two different cards before the fraud stopped, and I was so worried about what was going to happen to my money in my bank account. And I sometimes have the fear that it's going to happen again, right? And that's why I'm so excited to introduce You Are the Healer's newest sponsor, Aura, an app for protecting online data and personal information. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access things like my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Protecting yourself and your personal information is a form of self-care. I swear. Go to my sponsor, aura.com/healer to get a 14-day free trial and have peace of mind knowing your information is safe. Again, that's Aura, AURA.com/healer for your 2-week free trial. You Are the Healer is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is mandatory because there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking help. I think every person who walks this earth needs therapy, honestly. I'm stoked to be connected with BetterHelp to offer affordable and accessible therapy resources. The link is in my show notes, and you can also go to betterhelp.com/healer. That's better, HELP.com/healer. Now let's get into this episode. All right, welcome back to You Are the Healer. I'm really excited for this week's episode because I have a guest on. I haven't had a guest on in like almost a year. And this guest is like, I'm like trying to think of words, but it's my best friend in the world, Hannah, my international bestie. And Hannah was one of those people that when I was in college thinking, oh shit, maybe I should start a podcast. me and her sat on our little porch recording voice memos about God knows what, just our stream of consciousness.
That was seriously like pandemic time, nothing to do but just thinking, wow, people really would like to hear what we got to say. And I'd like to let the listeners here know that we were going to call it Chinese broccoli for no other reason than we were so in the belief system that like when you get broccoli and takeout and it absorbs all the sauce like on the floor, it's amazing.
Good.
So our level of discussions were as good as Chinese broccoli.
Yes. Maybe that's what I should title the episode. This week's episode with Hannah, as good as Chinese broccoli. It's gonna soak in all the nutrients.
Yes.
Just be like so yummy and like, why is it so good? That's what people are gonna say when they listen to this episode.
What's the secret sauce? I don't know.
Yeah. What do they have that we don't? Okay. Awesome.
Serious.
So yes. Okay, we're gonna lock in. But yeah, I'm really excited to have a guest on because I think that people offer so much value through stories and like their perspectives. And, you know, I think I have 35, 36 episodes of just me talking into the vacuum. So it's like, let's hear somebody else's perspective. Let's hear somebody else's thoughts. So, and I think you're a great storyteller and you have a lot of stories, a lot of things that have happened to you. So
do I.
All right. So take the floor wherever you want this to go.
So, all right. Hello, dear listeners, the people in the void. So you know me as like Hannah, the person that likes Chinese broccoli. Like what else besides this, right? If I had to talk to myself to a new person, I think one of my most defining characteristics is that I've been very, let's say interested and bold to take on new challenges. And especially I've been very aware that damn, we're 25, we're young people. And so we have a lot of these opportunities ahead of us. So especially in these past 2 years, I really, can I say grabbed up by the balls?
Yeah.
I'm going to say grabbed up by the balls.
Yeah.
Fucking fantastic. Amazing.
Go on it.
So I grabbed life by the balls. And what that means is I've had some incredible adventures and opportunities, but that's also come with a lot of hardship, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think what I would like to bring to this discussion is talking about, well, first of all, just storytelling, because some of this shit is oh my God, what happened?
Right? It's wild.
So first that, but then also, my lessons and takeaways, the things that because of course crap happens all the time, actually.
Yeah.
So it's well, what do we do when crap happens? How do we get through it, And so that's why I was really interested in talking in resilience in this episode.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I think it's when you have a life where you take more risks, where you put yourself in an adventure state or out of your comfort zone, that's going to come with trials and tribulations.
Oh my God.
When you live a safe life of, I'm just going to stay in my little box in my little town, you kind of, you don't have those big highs and lows that come from moving across the world and, all of the situations that you've embarked on. So I think And I love that we're going to spin it to like the lessons learned from it, because I think that's something that people can take home with them.
Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. So, think about, should I just like go into it and be like, hey, listeners, like, okay, yeah. So for the past 2 years, all right. So we all remember that, beautiful thing called the pandemic way back when. Mm-hmm. And I think that
5 years ago.
Don't tell me. Time is an enigma. I don't understand.
Time's not real. It's happening right now around us, so it's fine.
Exactly. So, but like during the pandemic, first, infinite gratitude because, you and I had a lot of quality time together.
We did. We were in a pod.
Absolutely. But then, like graduation time happens and I was, very much, as I feel like almost everyone is, that space of, what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. So I had no idea. I was sending applications at the wazoo, getting no results, And so I'm like living at home and it's like, dear God, how can I like squeeze the juice of life to just really like make the most of this time? Mm-hmm. And dear listeners, so a little bit more context. So my first year of university, even though like I studied at University of Pittsburgh with Sydney, I actually spent my first year in Florence because I did a year abroad program there and it was like chef's kiss. Fantastic, And I was like, well, shit, like I have this opportunity. And I was like, well, what about a master's degree? Make my resume a little bit more appealing, and I studied so many things in undergrad. So I was like, I could synthesize that into one master's degree. Mm-hmm. And, if you're a student and you're looking to have like a visa, a quote unquote study abroad visa, it's way easier to get than like, later down the life if you're working.
A work visa.
Exactly.
Yeah, or green card.
So I probably did the highest risk, high reward thing that I think I could have done at the time. I found my university through Googling. It was like a small university town that I'd never been to, never heard of, despite living in Italy, y'all. But I thought, well, everything just seemed to like make sense at the time, right? Mm-hmm. So, and also like, keep the details, nice and tight here. I'll just say, like, I spent 3 months doing like the application procedure for housing, to get all my documentation, configured, right? Because it's Italy.
And this is, to clarify, post-grad before embarking on your graduate program.
Yes, this is like if my program started in September, it was like, okay, like in June, like I'm signing up for housing, I'm doing that.
Yeah, you're doing all the paperwork.
Oh my God, the mountain of paperwork. Y'all, I literally like had to hand translate like some stuff, and I had to go to Harrisburg to get apostilles. If you don't know what they are, look them up. Exactly, they're terrible. Don't get them. Sorry, I'm kidding. But yeah, so it was a lot of work, right? And so during this process, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm of the like my family's of the tax bracket that we normally receive like financial aid. Mm-hmm. I'm a first year student and I'm an international student. So like in my head, and I guess like falsely comparing my American experience with my Italian one, I was like, there's no way they're not going to give me housing, right?
Right.
And I shit you not, y'all. 2 days before my flight, 2 days, I'm thinking like, okay, it's just a matter of time before they tell me my housing assignment, which dorm that I've been selected to. And the Italians, in their ever cryptic ways, said, oh, Hannah, it's going to be very difficult for you to receive housing at this point. And it's like, what the fuck? I leave in 2 days.
Yeah.
So at that point, I had to basically decide, like, if I was going to get on that flight, I had to just accept the fact that, like, if I don't find housing, I would have to come back pretty soon.
Yeah.
So to bring together some other big old details quickly together, I was able to book 2 hostels over the course of the month. And so I said, okay, if I can't get it in a month, I'll just accept coming back. And I went on the goose chase of a lifetime.
Oh my gosh, I remember this.
Listen, it was like hostel with bed bugs, and I stayed for 3 weeks. That is a whole tangent episode.
Yeah.
And I would love to slander this place, but we're not gonna. Anyways. So yeah, hostel, like 3 Airbnbs, a friend's couch, back to an Airbnb. And then God bless my other friend. She, even though she was like a new friend to me that I met in this small college town in Italy, she let me stay with her for like a week and a half. So shout out Anna, fucking fantastic person. Anyways, so then, yeah, we're going to just say like for 10 months I had unstable housing.
Mm-hmm. In a foreign country.
In a foreign country, and I'm, I speak Italian, thank God. But I was like meeting with agents. I'm, doing all these, like I'm going to classes and I'm meeting new friends. I'm like trying to keep a positive attitude.
Yeah, while covered in bed bugs.
Exactly. Like, I'll never forget. I looked
picture.
at my,
Oh God.
They were even on my ass, dude. And at one point, I looked at my arms because, bed bugs, they come out when you're asleep, and I was wearing a tank top. I looked at my arms, and I was like, oh my God, the mosquitoes here really are as bad as they say. Me, ignorant as fuck.
I want to give you some credit because you did talk to the hostel people, and you were
I
like,
fought them.
what is this? And they were like, ooh, it's not a bed bug.
They're like, oh, mamma mia, we don't give a fuck. Motherfuckers. Sorry, I've made peace with a lot of things. I still do not like them.
That's fair. That was a big trial.
Exactly. Anyways, so it did get to a good point where I think it was like 2 weeks in. I was doing nothing except like scrolling through all these housing pages. One popped up, and I called and I said, "Mamma mia, can I please have an appointment?"
I didn't know Pepe was going to come out in this episode.
Oh yeah, we're gonna put an asterisk in that and explain for later. But till then, they can just enjoy Pepe.
So you call, you get an apartment.
I call, I go to the tour. I say, block this shit. I want this an apartment, and I was so excited. And so, but here's the thing, right? I thought that I was getting an apartment with a 1-person bedroom. Because here's the thing too, they had to delete it after 20 minutes. Because I'm sure they already got like so many responses. Because side note, my university town was so screwed because post-pandemic they were accepting, I realized this after the fact, way too many students, and they could afford to not even like house, but just like the class sizes, everything. It was, flooded, so everyone there were, I remember like there were people that were like just straight up homeless, like living in their cars, right? Yeah. It's a really tough situation. But anyways, I get there thinking that it's a 1-person apartment, and I'm like, oh my God, there's 2 bedrooms. And I was like, I can have my Italian bestie, like we can get along. And I feel like if I open this can of worms, I will talk for a whole other hour. Yeah. So we're just going to say I spun the Russian roulette of housing, and I lost, y'all. Crazy shit. And I'm literally studying diplomacy, so like I know how to like make things work with people. There was no making that work. Yeah. Right?
Well, I think having a negative roommate experience is something that's very relatable for people, unfortunately. Yeah. I think everyone I've talked to has actually had a really negative housing experience with somebody before. So maybe we could talk about like what are some things that you learned from that?
That's a really good question. I'm thinking like, because I'm a very, see the good in people kind of thing and whatnot. Totally. But I guess just sometimes shit happens, because I remember, and I was trying to like interview people because I got literally 80 responses to my to my ad about like, hey, I want a roommate. So how do you go through 80 people? Right. Before like, and because we had to sign a contract, Right. So like I'm thinking about it, and I would love to say like, oh, I wish I could have gone back and done this and done that. But sometimes, I've learned that people will absolutely tell you what you want to hear. And like, I wish I could, well, not that I wish, but I could go back and I could say, oh my gosh, I should have seen that she was a little too tense when she said this thing to me or something.
Like read into it in hindsight, but you didn't know.
Exactly. So I would just say like, being in the present in the sense of you can't punish yourself in the past for making a bad, in this case, housing decision. But, once I realized, I was like, oh no, this is my situation. It's just, I think all being about agile and like, can we make this work, or do I need to get the fuck out of here?
Yeah. Right. And it's like the balance of, do I stay and persevere in a situation, or like when can you determine
when's enough?
When is it enough? And this could be in any situation, right? And it's different for everybody.
Absolutely, and I don't want our listeners to think, the message of this is give up, run away, because that's not the message.
No, that's kind of the opposite, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like thinking about my situation, I put in so much work. And just like I remember talking with my Italian friends, being like, "Hey, y'all, is this an Italian cultural difference, or is she just being awful?" And they were like, "No, Hannah, she's just being awful." I was like, "Okay." And so thinking about it, right? I'm really glad that at some point I learned like there are some people that you can work with, but if you're trying to, let's say, like create a diplomatic situation with the other person that does not want to collaborate, right? I was doing everything in my power. Like I remember at one point, she was sick, and I was making some vegetable soup, and it's just like a little like peace offering. It's like, hey, would you like soup? You're sick. Please don't be crazy, but yeah, no matter like my peace offerings, no matter like the stuff that I did to try to say like, let's collaborate together, at the end, she just did not want to do that.
Right.
You know,
and you need both people to collaborate in order to like make peace in relationships.
Exactly.
It can't just be one-sided, no matter how hard you try.
Exactly. So I guess like that's my, you know, I think there's a lot of lessons we could cover in this time right now, but the one for sure is, you know, trying to find solutions where they could exist, you know, and even like get creative, you know, because I think at the end of the day, people do want to collaborate, but just once you feel them out and you get the sense that, oh, they don't want to collaborate, sometimes it's just better to cut ties. You know?
Right. And I think that's such a valuable lesson. Like not everybody deserves to be around you and to have your shared space or your friendship or whatever it is. And like, unfortunately, cutting ties and like setting boundaries really is what it is. That protects your mental health.
Exactly. And I also want to add, you know, for a little bit of extra context, it's not that she was a bad roommate in that she left dirty dishes and all that. Like, really bad. And, you know, Sid's actually even like witnessed like some of her like.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I'll give an example, right? We lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex, and she was so like, how do I say, volatile that I would walk in on, you know, in the apartment complex, and I could hear her from 3 floors down, like yelling about how, you know, this and that, and it was like, oh dear God, like, you know, and you know, when you're around someone who yells, and then there was another point where like. We'll get into this super quick, but we had like a kitchen knife, right? Which is a fun way to start a sentence.
Oh my gosh.
We had a kitchen knife that was, you know, just a small enough one, but it was one that, you know, you gotta chop carrots somehow. And basically, she had at one point said, "Oh, Hannah, the knife broke while you were away." I was away for a day. I was like, "How does a knife break? You don't even cook?"
Right.
And
how does one break a knife?
So it just was like this whole paranoia of like, is this girl hiding a knife in her room? You know, because like all the ups and downs. So anyways, this is providing context back to like, if a person is like doing dirty dishes and whatever, like you can be strong enough to like work with that. But in that situation, it was like, oh no, like I'm going to go nuts thinking I got a serial killer in my apartment. So.
Right. Now that we've had a serial killer in our apartment, it's time for some sponsors. Just kidding. Okay, go back to what you were talking about.
So, yeah, again, dear listeners, there's so many things that I could tell you, but for the sake of brevity and, you know, non-rambling, we're going to finish that out by saying there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I can say very confidently that I treated that situation with like infinite amounts of grace and dignity and, you know, just treating it like in the most mature way possible. So, pat on my shoulder for Hannah.
Good job, Hannah.
Thank you.
Persevered, resilient, still here to tell the tale.
Here to tell the tale, exactly. Then, so just to provide the final conclusion, so I, thank God, was able to get out of that. And the university essentially said a couple months later, you know, because I was with her for like 4 months. But they said, yeah, Hannah, sorry for leaving you homeless. Do you want to move into the dorms now? And tell us your answer in 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like running around. I'm also running around Pavia. The dorms weren't open. I couldn't even see like what inside. Like. Yeah, I just had to like fully send it. And I ended up, it was much better in the end, but it was still just like little small trials and tribulations, you know?
Right.
Like 95 people shared 3 washing machines.
Oh my gosh.
Among other things. But it was a better situation if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
So but I feel like that's a good way to round out like, so that was 10 months of housing instability, like not knowing where we're going to go.
Right.
Some good karma though in the end. I went back to the apartment hunt because they offered me like temporary housing with the university. And I found my gorgeous little apartment, like overlooking the castle, like in so many ways perfect, right? But very happy that we ended that in like a peaceful way. And it was just like the sign that like I did well, you know, it was really hard. And it was so tempting to take the low road and be a bitch, but we did not.
So what helped you avoid that temptation? Because I face that often.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
You've always been that way, though.
Yeah.
You've like always, you know, regardless of how low the behavior is that you receive, I feel like you've always been someone that's like, you know what, I'm gonna choose the higher road, and I'm not gonna stoop down to their level. So how? So, dear readers, just to give you a little cue in.
I had to take a solid moment to think about that because, damn. And my initial reaction is like, I do think I'm just built like this, you know, but there's also something that's like talking in the back of my mind, which is saying like the instant gratification of lashing out and, you know, the emotional release of, and like, because the amount of times I wanted to, you know, smack a bitch was so frequent.
Yeah.
You know, but like, for example, if I were to have smacked her, right? Would that feel great in the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Would I feel terrible after? And would all of the consequences get way worse as a result of that, you know? So how did I get to that point of like prioritizing that? That's something maybe for my therapist to discuss. But I really think just like fully being aware that like, sure, it's going to feel great now to make the bad decision, but it's so much more worthwhile to like take a deep breath, you know, like I was rage sweeping at one point, doing that until I was calm enough to like say, hey, blah, 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 you know, instead of just rage.
Right. So maybe focusing on like the long-term consequences versus the short-term relief that you'd feel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like so many things, you know, because if you choose the quicker, easier, I want to say more monkey brain appealing option, you know, like for example, whether it's, you know, eating fast food every single day, or it's, you know, not going out for a walk because it's like that instant gratification. I find that those things, you know, just tend to not be the best for us, right? So sometimes the harder thing really just makes us like better for the future. So that's my little education.
Yeah.
And then with this, I feel like I could transition to the next part.
Yep.
So, dear readers.
No,
readers. Who's reading?
Every time you say dear reader, I think of Bridgerton with dearest gentle reader.
Dearest listen. No, we're not going to do that. So, all right.
Dear Void.
Dear Void. Yes, I love that. So, bringing us, you know, full circle. So, we got a little raggedy, you know, very tired Hannah, right? And so we did that 10 months, and God bless, I moved into my little apartment, and
by yourself?
By myself.
Yes.
I should mention, like, I'm by myself this whole time. You know, God bless my mom for, like, I would just be so overwhelmed sometimes, and it's like, Mom, what are you eating for lunch? You know, just to have that, like, connection.
Right.
So there's also, that's another point that I don't want to get into now, but you can absolutely, like, be alone in a situation, or, like, be by yourself. But it doesn't have to feel that way. So point for later.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we did that. We moved into the apartment, and it was a very lovely little respite for a while. And so, you know, I'm doing the classes, we're making the most of it, having a very lovely time, right? So let's say like a year after I moved out of that apartment situation, I got to the point where I realized like, okay, in order to finish my master's degree, you know, it's going to be a requirement to either have an internship or do 2 language courses. At the time, I'm thinking, or from what I've heard, is like the 2 language courses are almost impossible to pass, very intense, very dry as cardboard, not fun.
Right.
And so in my experience, I've personally had 2 internships before, given, sure, they were online during pandemic times, so they might not have taken the standard format. But I'll tell them the metaphor that I like to give, which I'm not even sure if I told you, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
So I was thinking that when I took on this internship experience, it would be sort of like doing an advanced level yoga class where it's like,
no,
then welcome. Okay,
I'm listening.
Sid is now a listener too. So I saw it as like, okay, I'm signed up for an internship experience. I've done this before. You know, I've tried out a couple poses. I'm used to being in what a yoga room feels like. Maybe it's going to get a little uncomfortable. Maybe I'm going to have to like stretch, and I'm going to have to bend in some ways that I haven't before. But in the end, you know, it's a yoga class. It's something familiar. Girl, I signed myself up for accidental boot camp. I got there, and I had 3 drill sergeants. Not shitting you.
Yeah.
One of them would say, Hannah, do push-ups. And I'd be like, okay, I'm doing push-ups. And then the next one would come in at the same time and say, give me burpees. And I'd be like, oh, this is a change. And then I would be like, okay, we're doing burpees, you know? And then the third one would come in and be like, Hannah, sprint the ball. It's like, honey, I can't do all 3 at once.
Yes.
So it was just like huge learning curve.
Yep.
You know, my commute was about like an hour 15 each way because I had to go to the city. It was not fun. And I realized, you know, an outside person could be listening to this and being like, does she just not like hard work? No, y'all, like I've been working since I was 14.
Yeah.
Like I understand what it means to be a hard worker. But
Yeah.
and I remember at one point I was even talking to my doctor, right? Because when I came home for a little bit of time during the summer, I was like, I feel like I should get like my blood work taken because I was like, my stress and my anxiety are so high, like something's not feeling right in my body, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking to my doctor about this, and she just looked at me and said, "Hannah, it sounds like they're taking advantage of you." I was like, "Yeah, doc, I think you're right."
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's such a good testament to like your body reacting physically when you're under a lot of stress or emotional, strain. And something that was interesting about this time in your life is that I needed pro bono clients for coaching. And so I was able, I hope you don't mind me talking about.
No, this is okay. Go ahead.
And I was able to coach Hannah for 5 hours total of like, how can we help you be the best, you? And a lot of it was like, almost, I don't want to even say preventative because you were in this situation already. So
I was in the
like,
thick of it.
We came up with a game plan. We're like, how to survive the next couple months, right? And so it was cool because like, I remember like meeting with you and being like, when can you get that doctor's appointment to get that blood work? Because maybe your body is really out of whack right now.
Maybe something's wrong. Exactly. And I want to say too, like, I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I'm telling you guys, like, one thing that 1000% helped me, that if you're ever in like a really tough situation that you can't just leave quickly, right? Because also, side note, this was a full-time internship. Like I would wake up at 7 a.m. and I would get home at 8 p.m. Monday to Friday for 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. So, and like I had even considered, leaving, trying to see if I could break out of the contract, but also going back to earlier, I think the short-term gratification of, oh my God, I don't feel so good. Like I need to get out, the emergency, like run feeling. It would have been great to get out of that.
Right.
But then there's a longer-term consequences of like, well, if I know to reference, like sometimes the jobs, like they don't ask you for the references. They just start calling around.
Right.
So I was like, I don't want that following me.
Right.
So I was like, I just want to stick with it,
Right.
So, then also like taking it a step back, I also just think about my, the physical symptoms, right? Like I was waking up with nausea, sorry, little gross trigger warning, but like, I was like waking up and like my first thought was like emails, and the nausea would get so bad that it would even be like, spitting up sometimes, right?
Right. And you couldn't keep meds down.
I couldn't keep meds down. That was one of your advices, was to take meds at night during the morning. And I was like, oh wait, I could do that. But then so there were like so many trials, and like I just wanted to quit so bad, because I mean, for God's sakes, if you're feeling nauseous from a stressful thing, and then you think, oh, I got 5 months left.
Right.
What?
Right.
But again, going back to that, my personal philosophy of like, it's better to just stick it out in that case. If it were like a year-long thing, then that'd be another discussion.
Right.
But I had this, let's say, like mental moment where I realized, like, if I'm going to finish this experience, I need to go balls to the wall. What does that mean? I'm not going to be an over try hard. I'm not going to be a, lecca culo, kiss ass, as the Italians say. But I was just like, all right, I'm doing this internship. I'm committed. And so it was really just like a whole mental shift, right? And so that really helped me get me just in like the, like, let's do this kind of energy, right?
Right.
But then also thinking about the other things that helped so much, right? Coaching with Sydney was fantastic, right? And not to say that you guys have to have coaching lessons with Sydney, although I would really, really recommend it. But literally just
not sponsored
yet.
Hannah gets commission.
I wish. No, if you, like, for example, if you're going through a really hard thing that doesn't have an easy escape route, right, let's say, having a person, to just have the space. It's not even that you got to go ad nauseum, pun not intended, about, all your problems and what's wrong. But when you have, like, for example, with us, when we had an hour to just be like, Hannah, this is your space to talk about whatever you want. That in itself was so helpful, right? So, having loved ones to talk with, for me, something that I realized that I'm actually pretty good with, from like outside perspective, is listening to my own body, actually. So like I very much get the sense of like, holy shit, I'm stressed, mama needs a bath, or like knowing when, okay, stuff has been really hard, I need a little vacation, so, and I've realized, from talking with other friends, that that's not always something that people are born with, or it's not something that just comes naturally to a lot of people. So
we're certainly not taught it. to listen to our bodies.
Exactly. You know, so for me in that moment, I would have to ask myself, and I'd be like, Hannah, tonight you're just going to go home. You're going to strip, you know, cook, take a, you know, pee, go to bed, you know? And, you know, like for me, like that's how like my body was saying, like, we're going to need to run at minimal energy and do basically like run, like lay low until, you know, I can finally recoup the energy, right?
Right. It was really like survival mode for you.
It really was, you know? So to add a little bit of comedy back into this little depressing segment, not really,
great coping skill.
Exactly. So it was, to provide more context, at one point when it all was like in the trenches bad, I had a dream that my boss, who was, you know, a higher up boss, I dreamt that she had a CIA hit out on me. Like I was in some hotel and that, you know, they were like crashing through the windows and trying to get me. They didn't get me in the dream, which is nice, but good. I just remember this, like, you know, the chair spun around and here was my boss like, ah ha ha, we're trying to take Hannah out. So that was a level of stress. But to go back to the point, you know, I was mentally committed and I would show up to work, you know, despite the nausea, despite this. And I think another good way to, you know, circle back with this is I was watching Brene Brown's documentary on Netflix. And so she said at one point, sometimes winning is just, it's not that you're, for example, her daughter was a swimmer. It's not that,
no, I would love to. So this is an incredible documentary. I'm definitely going to link it below. But she was talking about her daughter swimming. I think it was breaststroke, and she was very bad at it. And she was in this meet, and her coach signed her up, even though she's really bad at it. She knew she was going to get last. And basically, Brene Brown had this like full circle moment of saying, you know, sometimes winning is not getting first place. Sometimes winning, I have chills. Sometimes winning is just getting in the fucking pool.
Yes.
And so this internship for you, winning was showing up, getting in the pool, the metaphor of getting in the office.
Yes,
you know,
literally just saying that, okay, I feel awful today, but I'm still going to get dressed. I'm still going to do the commute, and it might not be fun, but we're just going to do it. Damn it.
Yeah.
And so I think that really was key from helping me transition to CIA hit, you know, but then also, dear listeners, you know, I really, by going balls deep into this experience and just sincerely doing my best, you know, I think that helped my coworkers and my team, who were just, you know, not the friendliest, nor there's many things, but, you know, in the end, you know, the same big boss that, you know, Mr. Evil in the dictator chair, ordering the CIA hit on me, you know, right when I was about to leave, she was like, Hannah, oh my gosh, and gave me this giant hug, and she even gave me a little kiss on the cheek.
Wow. Full circle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, I really wanted to tell that story, but I also want to open the floor to Sid, to, like, if you have any questions or, like, things like this.
Well, something that really is, like, sparking my interest is the word commit, right? And, like, deciding at a certain point to be like, you know what, we're going balls to the wall. Like, if you're gonna do something, you might as well fucking do it with your chest, right? Like, exactly. So that's honestly, that's my word for 2025 is commit, which I think is cool because this is coming full circle for me. It's just like, if you're gonna say that you're gonna do something, like, I'm starting a business. And part of me is like, I'm starting a business. Oh no. But it's like, no, I'm fucking committing. Like, I'm starting a business. I'm going balls deep into this thing. Because if you don't commit to something, if you're not going to, like, actively decide, you know what, this is where I'm putting my intention and my energy, I'm going to do it the best I can, then you'll never know what the outcome is truly going to be like. Because if you're going to do something, no matter what it is, like whether it's persevering through an internship, finding housing.
Exactly. Or again, like bringing it full circle, you know, you could be moving to a different place. You could be starting a new relationship with someone.
Exactly.
You could be, I don't know, kids. You know, there's like, maybe not we're committed to our children.
No, but seriously, it's like, if you're going to do something, like, don't half-ass it. Like, you're already doing it. And you could spend your entire life saying, oh, what if I tried a little bit harder? What if I really put all of my energy into doing this thing? You could, those what ifs could eat you away forever.
Absolutely. And I also want to add to, we're not saying we're going to ball and chain ourselves to something that's not meant for us.
No.
You know, but I think it's really is like a balance. Where that balance is, you guys will have to come visit me in Italy for a part 2 of this episode. But again, like, you know, just, you know, saying for me, like, I'm going to go to Italy. I'm going to try grad school. Maybe it'll fail, but, you know, just still getting on that plane, you know, or saying like, you know, today I'm spitting up because of nausea and like my heart rate is too high, but
Yeah.
I'm still gonna go to the internship and we're
Yes.
still gonna see this
Right.
through,
I'm
you know?
getting in the pool.
We're getting in the
that's my
pool.
win. And I think
Mhm.
also like another thing that this story really inspires is like everyone's definition of success is different,
Mhm.
you know? And so some people's success is making six figures.
Mhm.
Some people's success is having a relationship and having kids.
Mhm.
But it looks different for every single person and it's
Mhm.
not standardized.
Mhm.
So that was something that I was really like learning with
Mhm.
the podcast specifically is like, what does success look like for me? Does it look like making money off the
Mhm.
podcast? Does it look like having a certain amount of listeners? No, to both of those answers.
Mhm.
To me, it's like, do I enjoy doing this?
Mhm.
If the answer is yes, to me, that's what success is, right? And it can be different for every person in every situation. So success in a really tough situation can look like getting out of bed.
Exactly.
That can be your win.
Mhm.
And celebrating when you have those wins, even if it's not the same it's not the same level of success as somebody else. It doesn't matter, they're not you.
Yeah, again, as the Italians say, "Sti fucking cazzi." You know, it doesn't. You know, who gives a fuck? You know, because again, like you know, for me, it's you know, I so could have easily quit, you know, and all that, but it feels so much better knowing that I was able to dedicate and just see this thing out rather than saying, "Oh no, too hard for me, not going to even attempt."
Right.
You know.
Right. I think the temptation to lay down and die is high,
Mhm.
but there's something so I don't know, like it's almost like a trophy of perseverance.
Mhm.
Like the things that you learn or even just
Mhm.
being able to look back and being like, I did that.
Mm.
I
Yes.
got through that.
Yeah, exactly. And again, adding to, I'm not a special magic human being. I mean, right now I'm wearing a
I
very
think you
fun,
are.
like, color. Well, yeah. But in the sense of like what you know, me saying like, oh my gosh, I go into Italy, da 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 da. You know, what I did, I would say it doesn't make me special. You know, in the sense of like anyone can do it. It is literally just about the mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all comes back to mindset. All right, Hannah. Well, thank you for being subjected to being on You Are the Healer. I think this was a great, fun, giggly, but also well-rounded episode full of like a good lesson that I think people will take home with them. So now it's time. It's been so long since I've asked these questions. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is our checkout questions. I sound like a group leader, but okay. So Hannah, tell me something that people often get wrong about you.
So going back to the internship, one of the feedbacks I received from my peers and my supervisor was that I was like standoutingly positive, you know, which is hilarious because I was going through it, right? But when I showed up to work, I did have this like positive energy, right? Because that's naturally who I am. So I think some people might assume that positivity is just, oh, she's just a naturally bouncy, bubbly girl. Bro, no, we were in the trenches, you know? But I think, here, wait, what is it? What's something up? Yeah, so people might get wrong that, you know, I'm just naturally positive. Exactly. But a lot of times it is entirely a choice.
It's
you
a
know,
choice.
It's, you know, being mindful and saying like, okay, I'm going to go to, literally, I was on the train and I was going to say, I am grateful for the fact that the train is running on time today. So it may sound overly simplistic, but I would, in general, say that positivity is a choice. And so that's something that people get wrong, that it just comes naturally.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. What is something that you wish you could tell your younger self?
That it's all gonna work out. And I think a lot of people can relate because we're anxious about our futures. What happens if we do this? It might sound naive or it might sound simplistic or blah, blah, sticazzi, but just do it for the plot. You know, I do think a lot of times people do land on their feet, and that might be the positive mindset. But overall, you know, all the stress and the agita about what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to go? Yeah. Like you still end up somewhere in the end,
right?
You know, and even if you end up in a place where it's not your favorite, you are always able to stop, pause, redirect, take another choice because it's all about us in the end having the autonomy to pick what we want for ourselves, right? So I would just tell younger Hannah, chill the fuck out, please.
Right. It's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. Yeah, that's actually what a lot of people say when I ask them that question.
That's a good one.
Okay, and last question. Oh my gosh. Best mental health advice you have to share? 2. Okay, great.
Number 1 is practicing gratitude. Because other people will explain this in a more wise way than I would. But it's just a great way to cut through all of the noise of like all the monkeys in the brain and the things that are going wrong. Yeah. And it can just help you focus and redirect on the things that are going well, right? Even when you think that, everything is going wrong. Rah, 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 rah. Sorry, you're wrong.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something going well. The sun could be shining, the birds could be chirping.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you focus your energy on that, it really is like the best mindset, and the best perspective change.
Right. And what you focus on will grow. So if and I totally believe that your mindset literally sets the tone for everything in your life.
Yes.
Like if you focus on what is going well, even if you have to find the crumbs along the way, then you will slowly get to a cake, if we're using this analogy.
Yes.
Right. But if you're following, oh, everything's going wrong, you're crossing your arms, you're not open to seeing what's good, then you're not going to see anything that's good. And it's just going to be harder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is just going to be harder. So amen. Very, very true.
Gratitude. Okay. On the spot question, what's something you're grateful for right now?
Ooh, amazing. I'm grateful for the fact that we had delicious coffee this morning. I'm grateful for the fact that we're together because, to fly from, Italy to Pennsylvania to Denver, all in one Christmas holiday. It was very unlikely. So super happy to be here. Yeah. Grateful for your cat because she's adorable. Grateful for your little apartment because we know how important housing is. Grateful for my fun outfit that I have.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm grateful for your okay. So we went thrifting. Yes, a little tangent, of course, but we went thrifting, and Hannah got this hand knit cardigan, floor length. It's so pretty. It's multiple colors.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen, I'm going to mistitle it, but the Joseph of Many Colors Bible story. I look like that, but in a fun way.
Yeah, in a fun aunt way.
Exactly.
I'm grateful that you found that. I'm grateful someone made it and then somehow gave it to a thrift store. I don't know why they would, but I'm grateful that we were.
And I'm grateful for the fact that I can put on huge oversized sunglasses and come rolling into my luggage and be you're fun Anson from out of town. Tangent.
Okay. Yes, and bringing it back to the question, you said you had a part 2 of best mental health advice.
Yes, I did. Thank you for remembering. So going back to, we gave it a little hint to it earlier in the episode, but listening to your goddamn body,
so good.
Because again, being able to check in and say, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I need a vacation, or I'm feeling depressed. I'm going to go for a walk, and just asking yourself, what do you need right now in any situation, and so I think that is just a great way to help yourself adapt and, redirect to get yourself back onto, the better track for yourself. Right. So just listen to it, the proper steps to listen to your body. That's probably more Sid's specialty, but that's definitely my advice. Those two right there.
Yeah. Awesome. Listen to your body. I think I want that on a t-shirt.
We can make a lot of t-shirts from this episode.
I know, seriously. Gratitude out the wazoo.
Exactly.
Boss the wall. Okay. All right. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for taking the time to be subjected to be on my podcast.
Subject me to it anytime.
Just my arm. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for still being here, for listening to the message. We love you so much. And until next time, may you be well.